At the beginning of 2019, the all-round strangulation of Huawei was officially launched, and all walks of life in China were shocked and unbelievable for a while. At the end of the same year, the strange new crown virus began to attack China on a large scale, and China was shocked again. What roles did various Western media, academic and scientific circles, commercial entities, or a series of international organizations play? It is not that the series of wolves like round UPS and strangulations are so ruthless and widespread, nor is it that the two-reed opera is performed in all directions, but it is the fact that the whole of China is collectively shocked. The two mirrors of Huawei and the new crown virus not only reflect the true face of the wolves, they also reflect a harsh fact that is alarming. China today urgently needs to make up for the deep understanding of the international stage that is a deep pool of sewage. Knowing neither oneself nor the enemy has become a real threat to the revival of Chinese civilization and even the survival of the nation. Knowing yourself and the enemy is more urgent than any previous historical moment. The issues of biological genetic warfare and geophysical warfare need to be discussed separately. Here, we will examine the issues of Huawei and Silicon Valley for the time being. There are too many problems that China needs to address, such as: why is China surrounded everywhere? Is it simply a struggle for economic or technological supremacy? Is it just a matter of geopolitics? Why can't Silicon Valley be copied by other countries? Where is the secret? How has Silicon Valley become a model for America's unique political, military, scientific research and academic education industrial integration system? Where do elite universities, well-known academic research institutions, think tanks, and innovative technology companies in the United States have a steady stream of innovation funds and research funds? Who are their customers? What are the invisible bonds behind the scientific community and high-tech companies? Where does this bond lead? Are there hidden rules of the game in the so-called peer review mechanism, peer review, and the publication of scientific research papers in some powerful countries? What kind of institution is this academic review mechanism supervised by? What rules do scientists have to work under, and by whom should the research results be filtered? Is there really a pure science independent of political and military strategy in today's world? This series of questions will undoubtedly cause a lot of controversy. But before getting involved in any debate impulse, it is necessary to go back to a famous debate battle that took place outside China in 1999. One side of the debate now represents a growing voice among Western elites calling for a crackdown on Huawei, which must be dealt with before China grows bigger. No. 1. Festival 2023. A debate, uncovering the nature of globalization. In 1999, Foreign Affairs magazine held a debate. The debate was between Ignacio Raimonet and Thomas Friedman, editors of Le Monde Diplomatique. Who is Thomas Friedman? Many Chinese should be quite familiar with this name. Thomas Friedman in their minds is a well-known columnist for the New York Times, a passionate salesman for globalization and internationalization, a Pulitzer Prize winner for several times, and the author of The World is Flat, and other series of global marketing works. In 1999, when the debate came to a head, Thomas Friedman eagerly denied that he had ever raised, or even thought about, the false proposition that all the problems of globalization would be invisible to the market hand to resolve. By then, Friedman had produced several bestsellers promoting globalization, including The Lexus and the Olive Tree, 1999, which went straight to President Clinton's must-read list. Bibliography. In defense of the tenor of the book, Thomas Friedman argues thus: the entire last chapter of my book outlines what I believe governments, especially the US government, must do in order to democratize globalization, both economically and politically. By implication, globalization has never been a purely economic process. This is the true feeling of globalization that Thomas Friedman unintentionally expressed. Not only that, but in his book Lexus and the Olive Tree, he also inadvertently stated the essence of globalization dominated by the modern West. Globalization is actually the Americanization of the world. Lexus and the Olive Tree, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, 1999, pp. Thomas Friedman emphasized the privilege held by the US government. What means must be adopted to democratize this economic and political globalization? In the last chapter of his book, Thomas Friedman also provided a secret prescription for this, that is, the US government must be prepared to use military power to dismantle and destroy the unstoppable tide against globalization in sovereign countries. The diehards of the hidden hand of the market will never function without a hidden fist. McDonald's cannot prosper without McDonnell Douglas, the company that designed the U.S. Air Force's F-15 fighter jet. Provides continued security for the prosperity of Silicon Valley technology. The hidden fists of the environment are called the U.S. Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, with no intention of offending Silicon Valley, but with all due respect, concepts and technologies do not win and spread on their own. In other words, whether it is economic or technological, it must be backed by a strong military. No. 2. Festival 2023. Open secret, 2 absolutes. So it is not surprising that although the same Thomas Friedman and Trump's former advisor Steve Bannon are regarded as representatives of the two major factions in the field of American ideology, how to deal with China. On the issue, they are definitely like-minded comrades in arms. China must be severely hit, and China cannot wait for it to grow bigger. In fact, just about 2 years before Huawei was besieged and strangled in all directions, Thomas Friedman discussed the China issue with Bannon and other government dignitaries at the White House. At that time, Friedman himself had just returned to the United States from China. In China, he received warm hospitality, admiration, and trust, but none of this seemed to have affected his firm will to fight China and his patriotism for the United States. It is unbelievable that there are still a large number of Thomas Friedman fans in China, and there are many people who admire his books. There are quite a few good people who are proud of Thomas Friedman as their good friend. More globalization enthusiasts spared no effort to promote his book to his subordinates, and Thomas Friedman himself was surrounded by a group of fans and listened to him when he arrived in China. However, for the real mysteries of globalization that he articulated in Lexus and the Olive Tree, the core essence of globalization is hardly mentioned in China, as if it is not in general. No one seems to be interested in an open secret mentioned here, how the United States rose to become a world superpower. To pierce this skylight, the open secret is, to firmly build this power position on 2 absolutes, absolute military power and absolute monopoly position. Some people may dismiss Thomas Friedman's words as a minority of globalization believers, but they do not realize that he is just stating the rise of the West to dominate the contemporary world. The golden rule is an obvious fact, and even the Silicon Valley itself he mentioned has something to do with the military, not the miracle of American technological innovation. The rise of Silicon Valley and the miracle of Silicon Valley are not unrelated to the support of the military and the intelligence industry. This is not some sensational conspiracy theory. To put it simply, its birth benefited from the invisible all-soldiers system built by the United States after World War II, the national security state. Like most industries in the United States, the rise of Silicon Valley is also deeply dependent on the strong support and participation of the state regime military intelligence community and overseas covert warfare networks. Synonyms. This is the secret of the miracle of Silicon Valley that is difficult to be replicated by other countries. The development of science and technology in the United States is deeply dependent on the military. This conclusion is difficult for some good people to accept. These pure and good people firmly believe that Silicon Valley, like other technological and academic institutions, has risen independently with its own innovation. In fact, since the birth of universities in the United States, the U.S. government has been playing the role of funding and subsidizing university research projects. For example, the Morrill Act, in 1862 formally established a mechanism in the field of technical and agricultural education in the United States. The government allocated exclusive land for universities. Not only that, but also a steady stream of funds from the federal government injected into universities in various states. Most of the laboratories of these universities are also established with government funds, and then with the generous funding and support of the government, they have established their own scientific research strength and reputation. In World War II, due to the need for the rapid development of a new generation of military technology and weapons, the U.S. government and the military under President Roosevelt provided a wide variety of scientific research funds and grants, and various contracts. Through these methods, integrating research universities, cutting-edge scientists, and other human and scientific research resources across the United States into a huge organizational network, the government assumes the role of unified organization and coordination of scientific research work during wartime. The U.S. government's role in the unified organization and coordination of scientific research across the country was carried out through a new government agency, the Office of Scientific Research and Development, OSRD. During World War II, the U.S. Office of Scientific Research and Development, OSRD, stepped in and funded hundreds of military research projects, many of them top secret. A large number of cutting-edge scientists have also become an invisible special army for the United States to defeat its opponents. In the American series, we will examine the United States in detail, why since its birth, generations of Americans have grown up and lived in a world of almost overwhelming mythology. Part of the series of myths is to establish the United States as a savior of mankind and a beacon of civilization. It is fighting for God and fighting for freedom, democracy, and independence. For the vast majority of American scientists, their work also forms an integral part of this myth. However, bottomless financial support from the military and national security agencies has gradually become an irresistible temptation. A large number of scientists have joined an invisible jihad, to contribute their talents to destroy those bad guys, who do not agree with American values, American culture and way of life, American thinking and religious beliefs, and actively cooperate with the military and intelligence agencies. For example, Einstein, although he himself was an immigrant, also believed in this myth that was exaggerated, so he played an important role behind the Manhattan Project, which vigorously promoted the United States to manufacture atomic bombs and other new generation weapons. The United States has the reasonable moral legitimacy to master and use this technology to dominate the world and destroy human beings for great power. Since then, or in the unknown future, many innocent civilians have lost their lives under the destruction of nuclear weapons. In this tragedy, Einstein himself also plays a tragic role. In 1942, the United States passed the Technology Mobilization Act. Many government and military elites, such as the chairman of the War Mobilization Subcommittee of the Senate Armed Services Committee, chair of War Mobilization Subcommittee of the Senate Committee on Military Affairs, Senator Harley Kilgore has also pushed aggressively for a state unified research system in which government-funded research projects are centralized. Kilgore also strongly advocated the establishment of a centralized single agency responsible for allocating research funds for research projects, with the government holding patents. At the end of World War II, the integration of the U.S. military National Security Agency's scientific research and academia formed a careful national organizational network layout. This network centered on the academic institutions in the capital Washington and its surrounding areas, including Harvard University, Massachusetts, such a prominent name as Polytechnic. Compared with other universities, a disproportionately large amount of research funds are allocated to these four universities by the government. Not only that, various funds from the military, national security intelligence agencies, and overseas secret combat networks are also continuously flowing into these few research-oriented universities. Elite universities catapult them to the academic stage of the United States and even the world under the neon lights. This bias was soon realized by other universities. When other universities realized that they must establish close relations with the government, military, and national security agencies, many other universities that were far away from Washington at that time also came to the capital to establish offices or branches. Those with a keen sense of smell and quickly arrived in the capital Washington to establish permanent offices, including Stanford University, which made its home here in 1945. For a long time, Stanford University has been referred to by some researchers as one of the strongholds of the U.S. military and intelligence agencies. No. 3. Festival 2023. All People Are Soldiers Integrated Invisible National Security System, America's scientific research and academic field. Not only that, but since World War II, under the unique integrated invisible national security system of all citizens are soldiers, another distinctive feature of American scientific research and academics is the development and formulation of a series of strict systems and procedures, thus successfully keep science firmly in the hands of the military and national security and intelligence agencies. The so-called peer review mechanism, peer review, is a typical example of this. Under this scientific research review mechanism, relevant scientists must self-agree to a condition, to accept the indirect control of the state. Under this indirect control mechanism, these scientists must go through firewalls such as military and intelligence agency security and loyalty investigation audits, confidentiality classification, etc. The evaluation of scientific research must also only pass through this peer evaluation audit mechanism, and the mechanism must also be supervised by national security agencies, and relevant scientists must work under strict confidentiality rules. The patent registration of research results and their publication in international academic journals also belong to the military's monitoring territory. By the way, The outbreak of the new crown pneumonia epidemic in China at the end of 2019 revealed a shocking and unimaginable phenomenon. How did Chinese scientific researchers lack any national security awareness and almost no national security supervision for decades? Scientific research exchanges with the United States and other Western countries in the world of freedom spend a lot of money to publish a large number of cutting-edge scientific research results that are closely related to national security and national security in English-language academic journals controlled by Europe and the United States. The sharp weapon of Yu-Gi-Oh is handed over to the eyeing opponent. In the United States, since World War II, in order to meet the needs of a new generation of global invisible wars, while firmly placing scientific research results under the supervision of military and national security agencies, all kinds of laws, accounting, economics, and finance the system and design, as well as the endless public relations campaign also try to establish a pure science image independent of politics and military affairs, an unquestionable, open, and free, transparent, and open democratic mechanism. Science is vigorously established as a new religion that is inviolable, and unquestionable, and scientists have also become the new pope and even the new god that seems to be infallible and unquestionable. Naturally, the conscience of scientists under such a glorious image has nothing to do with trivial things such as nuclear weapons, biological genetic weapons, and geophysical weapons. Ensuring that the new science is catapulted to a religious altar status, infallible and unchallenged. Many people blindly believe in this new religion and worship this new pope, without seeming to realize that it was this alliance between science and the military and national security that made the modern times in which the West firmly controls the discourse power has been endowed with high political and military symbolic meanings, which enabled scientists to be successfully packaged and established as almost saviors and stars after World War II, and through powerful cultural strategies. And knowledge, the monopoly of discourse power, has allowed this new religion and the status of the new savior to be successfully transplanted into the public consciousness of other countries, especially those developing countries that have been colonized by foreign powerful cultures. The overwhelming and invisible control and dominance of the military and national security intelligence agencies over the American scientific, academic, and business communities is not limited to those military-related scientific research projects, and is not limited to those fields with obvious military applications such as electronics, computer network, communication technology, theoretical physics, biology, microbiology, chemical industry, military industry, etc. In the new generation of invisible warfare of modern integration, a series of extensive abstract research fields have also become strictly monitored by the military and national security intelligence agencies. The scope of academic research includes mathematics, philosophy, sociology, psychology, economics, geology, atmospheric physics, history of civilization, linguistic comparison, finance and insurance, ethnography, archaeology, history, and so on. The question worth exploring is, what is the relationship between these basic research and the military, and why should they be subject to strict review? When you think about it quietly, this is also very natural. For example, in mathematics, we will see that the development of a certain artificial intelligence software that has become a secret weapon in the new generation of integrated invisible warfare is due to a breakthrough in mathematics, which can be said to be the Tianyuan used for prediction in the mathematics of ancient Chinese civilization. An exemplary use of the concept of one-point and program logic. No. 4. Festival 2023. Reconstructing the Western centrism of the entire history of human civilization. For another example, the core of modern integrated warfare is the psychological warfare and the ultimate civilized warfare that revolve around surrender without fighting. One of the core strategies of this strategy lies in the reconstruction of Western centrism in the entire history of human civilization. In this way, history and archaeology, just as they emerged as independent disciplines in the Western colonial expansion, and then became the role of colonial companions, these disciplines that seem to have nothing to do with military strategy have become the focus of modern invisible warfare. The military and national security agencies of various countries strictly monitor, actively participate in, and fully dominate, and the free world has gradually monopolized and dominated the discourse power of academic education and information circulation in these fields. We will use another topic to examine a phenomenon, why a series of major archaeology across the world has the shadow of the military intelligence agencies of some powerful countries behind the scenes, and why the ancient advanced technology far beyond the modern level in the ancient Oriental civilizations found in it has also become the military intelligence network of a powerful country is fighting for the target behind the scenes, and why the right to speak in ancient Eastern civilization and archaeology has become an important part of the invisible war. In this invisible war, it is inevitable that many scientists have a double identity. To the public, they are unquestionable, objective, and independent scientists, and behind the scenes, they are the unsung and invisible heroes of the military intelligence agencies. In the establishment of the United States' unique national security network that covers all levels of the country and everyone is a soldier, one of the characteristics is the military national security agencies, corporations, financial institutions, academic research, media, sports, entertainment, church, etc. One of the most prominent figures in the scientific community, former MIT Vice President Vannevar Bush, is a model in the construction of the invisible network where all walks of life are integrated into one. Vannevar Bush is the director of the Carnegie Institution. He is a famous physicist himself. He also holds several positions in the U.S. government, including President Roosevelt's science advisor. He is also the director of the U.S. Office of Scientific Research and Development, OSRD. In 1945, Vannevar Bush, at the request of President Truman, drafted a report supporting the establishment of a permanent government agency for science. Vannevar Bush's report, Science, the Endless Frontier, Science, the Endless Frontier, clarified a far-reaching blueprint plan, a government-funded academic and scientific research system. He illustrated the connection between scientific innovation and politics and economics, and suggested that the government establish a National Science Foundation, NSF, to fund science education and basic science in universities. In this report, Vannevar Bush also emphasized the importance of the government's allocation of funds to scientific research projects with military applications, as well as the necessity and importance of providing government funding guarantees for medical research and university education. These suggestions of Vannevar Bush have become an important part of the American scientific research and education system after World War II. In 1946, President Truman established the President's Scientific Research Board, PSRB. A report by this agency highlights an obligation of scientists to serve the government and the national interest. It is the duty of scientists to be willing to assist and keep our system running smoothly. Science neutral, it only exists in mythology, or in a future beautiful world. Naively believing in its reality will pay a heavy price. No. 5. Festival 2023. National Security Law, constructing an integrated national security system in the style of all people are soldiers. In 1947, the Watershed National Security Act, was passed by Congress. This bill has played an immeasurable watershed role in winning the Cold War for the United States and its allies, dominating the contemporary world order, and maintaining the dominance of the West in the world. This act comprehensively and systematically reorganized the organization and institutions of the military and foreign policy of the United States, creating an organizational infrastructure perfectly adapted to the needs of a new generation of world wars. It is intricate, ubiquitous, and intertwined. The National Security Act of 1947 officially launched an important process, the establishment of an integrated national security system of the all people are soldiers in the United States. This can be said to be a perfect national war system, which perfectly adapts to the need for a generation of invisible wars and a comprehensive national game. Under this system, scientific research, academia, education, media, business, finance, entertainment, culture, sports, religious organizations, non-profit foundations, civilian think tanks and other industries in the United States are all controlled by the military and the state. The security system and its ubiquitous invisible network are closely linked together, coordinated and organized through various extremely concealed channels and methods. Not only that, but it was this National Security Act of 1947 that authorized the creation of two organizations that would play key roles in this new generation of invisible global warfare. One was the highly secretive National Security Council, and the other is the CIA, established to meet the special needs of the new generation of invisible warfare. Why is it said that the CIA was established to meet the special needs of this new generation of invisible warfare? Doesn't almost every country have similar overseas intelligence agencies? In the minds of many, the CIA is nothing more than an overseas intelligence gathering organization. But the word intelligence is quite misleading. Study the original bill that authorized this agency, and the secret appendix behind the bill. Study what the range of operations of the intelligence organization authorized by the appendix includes, and explore what organizations the series of leaders of this agency belong to, and then think about what the words from the Bible engraved on the wall of the lobby of its headquarters mean, it is not difficult to draw another conclusion. Many people accuse it of being a giant monster that transcends all laws and any moral norms, becoming a shadow government behind the government, the law above the law, a machine that creates global wars, disasters, terror, and turmoil. It is full of the blood of the innocent and the tears of the poor and weak, and it is precisely such an organization that has affected the ups and downs of all nations in the world since its birth. A CIA official is said to have boasted thus. History. What history? We make history. We can wipe a country off the map, or we can create a country out of thin air. This is by no means an exaggeration, but is quite close to the contemporary international reality. However, all of this is a later story. Let us return to our present topic here. I just mentioned the National Security Law. In addition to the National Security Agency, NSA, and the CIA, this bill also created a series of other new agencies that were born to adapt to the new generation of warfare, as part of the unique all-soldiers national security network of the United States. Such as the National Security Resource Board, NSRB. This agency is authorized to be responsible for a wide range of civil defense responsibilities, such as the strategic relocation of strategic areas and sectors across the country, including those in the country's industry, service industry, government, and economic activities that continue to operate for national security. Vital areas. In 1953, President Eisenhower replaced the Civil Defense Mission of the National Security Resource Board, NSRB, with the Office of Defense Mobilization, ODM, and brought under control those closest to himself in the scientific and military circles' important position in this institution. In this way, a strategic layout of academic research military company integration across the United States has gradually formed. For example, in general, the country's applied scientific research projects are undertaken by the government, military, national security intelligence agencies, and laboratories controlled by and in cooperation with these agencies, such as industrial enterprises and multinational companies, while basic research is usually undertaken by universities. The government, the military, the national security and intelligence agencies, and various facade foundations under their control and other organizations will undertake the funding. Not only that, the financial budget and funds, which are far larger than the funds obtained by these scientific research projects, are allocated to the procurement, production of military equipment, weapons, and other fields. This has formed an economic system with the defense industry as the core pillar in the United States and created a powerful network of defense contractors covering the whole country, with a steady stream of production and procurement funds from the government, military, national security intelligence agencies, and overseas secret combat networks, has not only transformed the U.S. economy, but also irreversibly cast the U.S. as a nation. The pathological mechanism on which countries and nations depend for their survival and prosperity. This kind of system will inevitably lead to a country's deep dependence on war, heavy dependence on creating enemies, and continuous war, so that it can meet its needs for survival, development, and prosperity. In other words, it relies heavily on continuous foreign wars to maintain domestic stability and maintain an unchallenged absolute power monopoly and dominance in the world. Looking at the history of the United States since it began as a colony of the British Empire in the New World and the War of Independence was detonated until now, it is not difficult to draw a conclusion that many kind-hearted people find it difficult to accept. The land of freedom is actually a land of militarism. A sick society and culture that relies heavily on continuous wars is also gradually pushing the entire human society to the brink of war and destruction. Not only that, this kind of social culture and mentality that advocates war and is deeply dependent on continuous war has also continuously derived various new types of war machines and methods. This has become an irresistible obstacle to its survival. Physiological needs. No. 6. Festival. 2023. The manipulative art of the masters of war. In fact, designing continuous disasters, crises, and wars, this skill is exactly the signature feature of a series of powerful countries on the road to greatness. And a regular precursor and pattern of designing, manufacturing wars is to demonize the target of the war step by step, and to build it into an evil object that poses a threat to itself and mankind, and in this way as an excuse, with the cooperation of the media, the atmosphere of war public opinion is exaggerated to gain public support. In modern stealth warfare, in this era of democracy, this mode of war-making is also extremely important because of the need to win the democratic support of the public. This feature is also evident in the invisible war that strangled Huawei and ravaged the new crown. Some people may disagree. After all, this is the age of the internet, and people can obtain their own information from multiple channels. It is not necessary to successfully sell a threat that does not exist to the public and make the majority of the population support a war that does not exist. Not easy, is it? This is a good question, but one that the war masters have long thought of and set out to solve. Therefore, this also requires the coordination and cooperation of all members of the integrated elite network, and the invisible control of mainstream media and various heterogeneous non-mainstream media through various channels. It needs the cooperation of scholars, expert authority, scientists, and other non-governmental groups who are neutral and objective in the eyes of the public. It is not a new thing in the 21st century for academic education to cooperate with a new generation of invisible warfare. It has become more and more mature after World War II, and one of the models is the famous P source. This is one of the projects led by the CIA to recruit professionals such as university professors. Under this project, professors from many elite universities in the United States, such as Harvard University and Yale University, have been hired by the CIA as underground agents for its secret stealth war. A famous example is Professor Norman Holmes Pearson of Yale University. Professor Norman Pearson is also a well-known figure in the language world. But like many professors in American academia, he is not an ordinary academic celebrity. During World War II, Professor Norman Pearson worked for X2, the counterintelligence department of the U.S. Strategic Intelligence Service, OSS, in London, England, and monitored the information and data of more than 1 million enemy spies and organizations collect work. He advocated that these patriotic practices continue after the war. As a professor at Yale University, one of the strongholds of the integrated network of American elite forces, Professor Norman Pearson also actively participated in the new generation of invisible wars after the war, and presided over the disciplines that are part of the culture war in the United States and around the world field development. This newly emerging discipline is American Studies. The question is, does the rise of the discipline of American Studies have any war significance? As we mentioned just now, in the invisible world war launched after World War II, although the form will be various, whether it is already a bit primitive nuclear war, or the bioecological genetic warfare born in the new generation of military revolution, geophysical warfare, etc., other in the final analysis, the core is still one, the psychological warfare of surrender the enemy without fighting, and the cultural warfare and civilized warfare are the center of this strategy. In such a modern integrated war, one of the core components is to establish the United States as a unique nation qualified to become the world's ruler, as the pinnacle of human civilization and the beacon of freedom and democracy, and cultivate and support a social and cultural atmosphere and breeding soil that worship and imitate everything in the United States in other countries, silently and invisibly leading the brain consciousness of the population of various countries. Therefore, academic fields such as international studies or various foreign studies have also been implicitly and systematically developed into new disciplines and academic research subjects corresponding to this grand strategy. Across the countries of the world, these studies, or academic education generally have a common feature, a clear direction of cultural colonization and the monopoly of discourse power in knowledge structures. Norman Pearson has also trained many leaders in the U.S. military, national security agencies, and secret combat networks who have stepped out of Yale University, such as James Angleton, the CIA Master of Secrets and Tactics. James Angleton left a strong mark in the annals of intelligence espionage and covert warfare with his talent for intrigue and conspiracy. His first big professional breakthrough was manipulating the Italian democratic elections of 1948. In this anti-communist jihad, the CIA worked closely with NATO, the Church, and the Italian underground mafia to effectively manipulate the Italian general election and successfully prevented the disaster that the then popular Italian Communist Party was elected to power. The Christian Democratic Party of Italy was able to win a big victory and come to power smoothly. This major victory in the Italian general election has successfully prevented the domino effect of the Communist Party and the left wing coming to power in Europe. In the second year, Angleton was promoted to head the CIA's Office of Special Operations, and under the condition of independence and strict secrecy, he controlled a media composed of reporters, editors, anchors, etc. Covert propaganda warfare, psychological warfare, and an army of intelligence and espionage networks, performing various sensitive and dangerous tasks. Angleton's talent for intrigue and conspiracy also allowed him to keep the existence of his media army so strictly secret. For a long period of time, Even other CIA officials were also concealed, locked in a safe that only he can open. The media has a long history of being used as the water army of military intelligence agencies. As we will see in the Culture and War series, the media has a long history as part of the war machine. But let's get down to business here for now.